my farm adapt to climate change?
You only progress when you ask better questions. Mint. Think ahead. Think growth.
Hello, how can I help you?
Good evening. A very, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mundane tasks, they disappear. Data unveils some very profound insights, and market trends, well, they just lay there bare before us. Now, the question is, who does not want a piece of this unprecedented power? Today, we're here to deep dive into the world of Gen AI, a very powerful force that's not just reshaping, but it is revolutionizing the way we work. My name is Xenia Fernandez, and what an absolute pleasure it is to be standing here before you and welcoming all of you to Mint AI for Business Summit 2024. And you know what? I need your help. A lot of our participants are still outside. So can you help me out here by putting your hands together in a big round of applause? Try and make it as thunderous. Try and bring the roof down so that they know the show has gotten started. It actually worked. Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You know, evidently we have readily embraced the power of AI and Gen AI. Well, I think with that, we aim to have conversations on the stage today where we can find answers to some very tough and burning questions. Questions like, how can I strengthen the foundation of AI? How can I integrate and even scale AI into my already existing systems? How can we ensure data privacy? And I think the most critical question that we aim to find an answer to is, how can I deploy responsible AI solutions? Responsible AI, as we all know, sets the stage for appropriate boundaries. Its key elements like transparency, accuracy, accountability, and even explainability ensures that the system can give us accurate, or rather articulate, reasons behind its answers. I want you to hold on to all of these thoughts because this sort of sets the stage for everything that's going to happen here, ladies and gentlemen. But talking about questions and answers, I'm going to invite you to participate in the summit as much as possible, because you'll agree with me when we say that while we have a packed room here, we have a huge community out there that we must share with our insights, our takeaways, anything that strikes us in the moment. So while I have been asking you to put your cell phones on the silent mode, I would say keep your smartphones, handy, and make sure you share all of this using your social media platforms. And when you do so, don't forget to tag us at Live Mint, and you can use 2 hashtags for today, which is hashtag AI for Business and hashtag Responsible AI. And of course, in case your friends or your colleagues couldn't make it here, you can actually WhatsApp them right now and tell them that this event is live streaming. Yes, we are live on livemint.com and even on Mint's social media channels. So they can watch us as things unveil themselves on the stage. Talking about conversations, I thought the best way to begin this evening would be to start the conversation off stage than on stage, all right? Now, the question is, how do we do that? We're going to do this using an exercise that's called You Can Talk to Me About. Now, I'm aware, or rather, I'm presuming that a lot of us in the room know one another, or we may not know one another. We may also know one another in very different or limited capacities, and the idea is to use the next 3 minutes to know each other better, all right? Now, if you are seated on at a round table, then that table is your team or your group. If you are seated at the chairs there, you can just form groups of 4 or 5, all right? And that's going to be your group or your team for this exercise. I love how everyone's looking at each other and be like, oh, hello there. I have someone. I have a neighbor. Yes, sir, you have. And it's time to know your neighbor a little bit better. I love how you're moving chairs to bridge the gap. That's literally how it works. Okay, so it's called You Can Talk to Me About. Now, when time starts, here's what you're going to do. At the table, you're going to take turns and introduce or reintroduce yourself. If I were at your table, I'd say, Hello, everyone. My name is Zina Fernandez, and you can talk to me about dash and dash, two blanks. Now, what do you need to, use to fill in these blanks? Two things that possibly everyone at the table doesn't really know they can talk to you about. All right? So if I were at your table, I'd say, hi, I'm Zina Fernandez, and you can talk to me about filmmaking and skydiving. Now, I'm very certain that you didn't know that I've produced short films that have won international awards. A conversation started there. You definitely don't know I've jumped out of a plane in Dubai. Have I? I don't know. Then we can also play Truth and Dare. We'll do that later, all right? All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's kick off with You Can Talk to Me About. We've got 3 minutes on the clock. I'm hoping to hear conversations buzzing in the room. And your time starts now. Come on, go ahead. Can we have some music in the background, please? Just to motivate everyone. All right, we have 2 minutes left, everyone. Let's make the most of it. Is this a group? Wow, this group looks really cozy. You all look like you know each other already. Is that true? Okay, great. You can get to know one another more. हाँ, अभी personally, sir. पूछिए. Yes, absolutely. Go for it. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 minute to go. I love how some tables are having very serious conversations and the others are having great fun. It's a good balance we have here. Also a great opportunity to exchange cards, if I may. 30 seconds to go. I'm around eavesdropping. And the final 10 seconds. I'm going to count down to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. I love how we're social animals and we love, one conversation starter and we are raring to go. I can see some of you already becoming friends also, which I think is very, very encouraging. यहाँ पे तो you can talk to me about अभी भी चल ही रहा है. What do we do? How do I get their attention back? So, we want to join this very interesting conversation. Look at them. We're talking about food. I was eavesdropping and I heard you say that you can talk to me about all the restaurants in Mumbai. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. So, give us a tip. Give a tip to everyone in the room. I'm sure there are people from outside Mumbai as well. If there's one restaurant and one cuisine that every person who is in Mumbai or comes to Mumbai should try, which one would that be?
I think that's St. Regis, which is Seven Kitchens. I think it's really good. Different types of food, across different parts of India. So everybody should try that.
Oh, so it's 7 kitchens, pan-Indian food.
All live counter, so it's really good.
Unlimited hai na, sir? Let me ask the most important question. Sir, unlimited hai na? Bilkul unlimited. All right, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention back, please? I hope you enjoyed this little way of knowing each other a little better. And now I want to draw your attention towards the screen because as you all know, I'm sure you've looked at the agenda already. We have breakout sessions that are scheduled for later today. Now, at the time of registration, each one of you was given a lanyard. You may have noticed that lanyard has a specific color, and this color actually ties to the respective breakout session for today. So here is the screen that's going to make things clear for you, and I'm going to reiterate it a little bit just to make sure you go to the correct breakout area. So we have our breakout session topics here. Number 1, building a foundation for Gen AI infrastructure investments that pay off. If you see, it's highlighted in the color pink, right? So if that's the color of your lanyard, you go to 204A, followed by scaling Gen AI responsibly in your organization, which is the color purple or lavender. You would go to 204B. Yellow is reimagine customer experience with Gen AI. That's at 205A. Revolutionize employee workflows and productivity with AI capabilities is at 204B, and that is the color, hold on, is the color blue, 205B. And finally, we have black, which is 202, the era of Gen AI, security for AI or AI for security, question mark. Now, this is literally where, this is the layout of the place we are at right now and where your respective breakout sessions are located. However, in case you're unsure towards the end of, our agenda in this room and once we break out, please feel free to approach our registration desk outside. They will be able to guide you to your respective breakout sessions. We want to ensure that everything is seamless here at the summit. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, time for me to invite on stage the man who's going to set the context for today. Senior Associate Editor, Mint. Please put your hands together for Leslie DeMonte.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, perfect. So friends, on behalf of Mint and IBM, I once again wish you a very hearty welcome to each one of you to this AI for Business Summit. I'm sure you had a very good time getting introduced to each other. My apologies for the delay because we were just waiting for some of our colleagues to come in. I guess traffic jams in Mumbai. But yes, that's part of life. I think we are by now, when ChatGPT was introduced somewhere in, it was in December 2023, when we were discussing it in our newsrooms, little did we realize that it would become so big that it would have 100 million users in just 2 months. And today, OpenAI is over an 85 billion kind of valuation company. So it's incredible the kind of pace at which technology has moved in the last 1 year. And this is what we're actually going to talk about. But whether you talk about ChatGPT, you talk about Gemini, whether you talk about Claude, whether you talk about Perplexity, or you talk about any LLM or any LLM-based kind of chatbot today, it is more from a user kind of, individual kind of context. But in enterprises, of course, there is a very different kind of consideration. So here you clearly see that about 40% of enterprise applications will have used generative AI by 2024. This is a Gartner prediction. Of course, IBM's thing is also that 59% of Indian enterprises would have actively deployed AI, and this is the highest among all the countries surveyed. And Sandeep is going to talk about this in our next session, the following session that we have, in much more detail. So I will not take much time on that. Now, again, the top factors that are driving adoption in India are accessibility of AI, need to reduce costs, automate, increase AI embedded into the off-the-shelf kind of business applications. Anything that any CXO, for that matter of fact, will tell you. Can you just, yeah, sorry. If you look at the generative AI market, it's again about $207 billion. But if you look at 2020, it was just $5.7 billion. So you're seeing the kind of exponential increase that we have out here. Of course, how many of you would, in this audience, say that you actually know the difference between traditional AI and generative AI? Can I have a show of hands? Oh, I thought all of you would know it. But I'm glad that there's a certain amount of honesty, because yes, while it is pretty straightforward, but of course there are those nuances. A simple way of understanding it is, while machine learning, which is an AI technique, as all of us know by now, because AI has been around for 6-7 years. We have been talking about it for 6-7 years. Surprisingly, even generative AI, we have been talking about the transformer technology for almost like from 2016 onwards, but mostly in the labs. So now with ChatGPT, it has come to the fore. But if you look at the difference between the two, it's so clear that one is limited to observing and classifying patterns in content, whereas if you look at generative AI, as the name suggests, it generates content. Here's a nice way of doing. This is by an IBM, the leader of generative AI, Armand Ruiz. He comes out with these lovely emails every week. I mean, every day practically, if I'm not mistaken, and something that you probably may want to subscribe to. I think he loves cats. You could also put a dog out there. So it's self-explanatory. Here are some of the applications of generative AI, whether it is content creation, marketing and advertising, customer service, summarization, data analytics. In content creation, of course, you can create article stories, you can write code, you can do media content, you can even write poetry if you want. So if you're not a poet, you may want to try that. Other applications, I've just listed a few applications, there are plenty of others. So you have art and design, you have AutoML where you can do auto code. It's also be used for drug discovery, you can do fraud detection, and you can also do healthcare imaging for that matter of fact. When we talk about LLMs, we're not just talking about size, because sometimes there is a chance of getting distracted with the number of parameters, whether 175 billion parameter kind of GPT-3, or I think GPT-4, nobody knows. The guess is somewhere about trillion of parameters. Nobody knows what's happening with Claude 3 and with GPT-5 when it comes. But yes, we will. But you also have a lot of large multimodal models. You have LLMs, the large language models. You also have smaller language models. And of course, when you are talking about smaller models, they consume less energy, they're less expensive, and they can perform specialized tasks. Open source versus closed source is another consideration that enterprises will be looking at. So here's like, okay, here when we talk about open source large language models, they are publicly available, the source code. You can build atop them. The costs, the collective development, innovation, knowledge sharing, etc., transparency and community involvement. Closed source LLMs, basically the source code is not publicly available. And of course, architecture, the training data, and the other algorithms are typically proprietary. Now, of course, with open source LLMs, those who have been tracking the kind of news around it, is that there are certain moves to try to clamp down on open source LLMs. Whether that happens or not is a different issue. But yes, it clearly shows the power of open source LLMs. Current limitations of generative AI, I have just listed a few. Deepfakes, voice clones, raising concerns about trust, authenticity, bias, fairness, IP, trademarks, copyright concerns. They often require a large amount of high quality training data because data still is oil. And of course, it requires continuous fine-tuning and needs to stay up to date. And of course, hallucinations, cost to run the models. These are some of the considerations that we have done. You can always address these kind of considerations, the kind of limitations with RAG, which is the retrieval augmented generation, and of course RLHF, which is reinforcement learning with human feedback. Both of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. This is the kind of comparison. Again, this is Armand Ruiz who has put it out. As I said, he's the director of generative AI, IBM. Here are these considerations, how to scale it up, having the right strategy and roadmap in place, mapping everything back to business value. And one of the biggest barriers to scaling is, as most of us in this room would know, is skills and access to skills, which I think Sandeep will be talking about in detail. And trust in AI is the key. Here is where, the entire stress is on responsible AI. And again, we will be talking about this in length. You have the role of autonomous agents over here, because 1/3 of interactions with Gen AI services will use action models and autonomous agents for task completion by 2028. This is a Gartner prediction. Of course, what are autonomous agents? They can act on their own, make the decision. They're used in driving cars. They're used in many other things. I've given some examples. They're used in AI, in finance, for algorithmic trading. They're used in healthcare, where you can use them for medical imaging. They're used in supply chain management, where you can optimize your logistics and supply chain processes, and also used in insurance, whether it is for handling policy holder interactions through voice, text, etc. This is another topic because we have been talking about autonomous agents. AI has the potential to automate about 25% of the entire labor market, and of course, that also means it follows that reskilling people to use AI effectively is a must. This is one question that we'll be discussing during the panel discussions, whether we need a chief AI officer, because you already have a CIO, a CTO, a CDO, a chief data officer, a CMO, even a CFO and CA. So are these kind of rules being, this thoughts, the responsibilities being divided in these very roles, or is there a person, when we are talking about responsible AI, what should we be doing? And finally, of course, I think this is something that all of us are going to stress about, that don't get too carried away with the shiny tools, because at the end of the day, when you're starting with you don't start with the technology, and I think Sandeep will speak at length on this particular topic. You start with the business problem that you want to solve. So looking forward to a great evening session with you folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you. It's amazing how you were able to encapsulate all of that in such limited time, but thank you for setting the tone and the context for today and telling us exactly what are the kind of conversations that we can expect. And taking a cue from you, I'm going to, before we fast forward into the evening, rewind and talk about how steam engines really propelled us in the 19th century, and then came the mobile phones in the 21st century. Similarly, AI, or artificial intelligence, is poised to dramatically alter decision-making, how we either gather information or how we use that data. Most importantly, what are the choices that we make, and how are we as leaders managing our organizations? Imagine, in fact, AI foreseeing not just our business challenges, but most importantly, even some strategic openings even before we can complete our morning social media check. Now that is the world we are living in, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to shift the conversation from what is the significance of AI to really uncovering some of the game-changing aspects that CXOs can use to connect to the world of AI. Maybe some of them have not even captured our attention as of now. And like Leslie rightly said, I'm going to go ahead and invite our first speaker of the day without any further ado, the best person in the room to tell us more about all of this. Please put your hands together and welcome Managing Director, India South Asia, IBM, Sandeep Patel. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I also want to thank you because I always feel very proud to be a trusted technology partner for many of you in this audience. So again, thank you for your trust and confidence in us. And thank you, Leslie, for setting the context. So look, I'm going to try and make this somewhat practical and share with you more of results of how we've been putting artificial intelligence for business in practice. Today, in many respects, I feel that AI or artificial intelligence is at an inflection point. It has transitioned from assisting businesses to becoming a very foundational technology. And we call it the AI first world. And in this AI first world, the first thing that we've thought would be good to do is to test the adoption of AI around the world. And I'm going to share with you some of the findings from that. It's something that we refer to as the AI adoption report. And it shows, what is very interesting is if you look across all the countries, it shows that India and Indian enterprises, they've clearly outshined their global counterparts, particularly in both exploration of AI, but also deployment of AI. And it's about 59% of IT professionals at large organizations, they report that they have actively deployed AI. Similarly, I think if we look at some of the other statistics, what we find is that about 6 out of 10 IT professionals, they report that their companies are actively deploying and implementing generative AI solutions, and about 34% others are exploring it in some way, shape, or form. So in many respects, I think many of you in this room are probably a part of that percentage, and in terms of what you're doing or trying to do with AI. What is also interesting is there's another little factoid that 54% of the pilots and POCs, they actually make it to production. And so the question that we ask ourselves is, why aren't AI POCs, experiments, why aren't they scaling? And I'm going to share with you at least some learnings that we've had across implementations and also scaled projects that we have around the world. And while this is a good indicator, I think what we really have to look for is how do we take this technology, make it relevant for business, but more importantly, how do we scale it into production where we can actually get the benefits at scale. So when we looked, we've done about 700 plus pilots, production projects and others globally. Over the last, I would say across the last 9 to 10 months, there's been about 700 plus pilots that we've run globally. And when we look at use cases that are becoming relevant in this space, not surprisingly enough, customer service and IT processes, those are consistently always there. But also what we are finding is that areas which either have a large labor and cost concentration, those that involve large document handling, those which are actually seeing process delays where you can drive automation, or have gaps in risk management that can be automated as well. Those are areas which are, gaining a lot of acceptance. And I've just highlighted a few here. And by the way, a lot of this information will be available to you. But I think when we boil it all down, there are probably 4 key categories that are very relevant today. Customer experience, clearly that is sort of where the genesis of AI actually came from. Horizontal functions like HR, finance, supply chain. Interestingly enough, we tend to have IBM as a client zero for all the technologies that we have ourselves. And we have actually automated our entire HR function by AI enabling it with some amazing results. The third area is, IT processes, IT operations, etc. And then clearly core business operations. So these are domains which we are seeing as use cases that are being relevant, where clients are actually seeing value in these, looking at an ROI, and then trying to get these more scaled up. Now, as we have gone through these, there are 5 fundamental principles that I think are becoming very relevant in terms of enterprise considerations on how to scale AI. So these are, I think, 5 truths that have started to surface, which are very real. And then there's a sixth overarching one, which I'll talk about in just a second. But first, AI will be multimodal, and it needs to be hybrid by design. You will have different jurisdictions in terms of data privacy, data residency, and all the rest of it. And I think as we designed our Watson X AI platform, we actually had that as a fundamental design principle that we would need for it to be hybrid by design. It can, operate within your firewalls, on private clouds in your firewall, on premise. It could be, hosted elsewhere on the public cloud as well. However, the important thing here is that one model will not rule it all. In fact, 60% plus of enterprises, they are already leveraging a combination of models. For example, there's the IBM Granite. Enterprises have their own proprietary models, and they're also using open source models like Llama, Mixtral, etc. The rationale is very simple. It's cost, security, privacy, having a flexibility, and driving innovation. And at times, it's all about regulatory concerns, right? So that's what defines it to be hybrid by design. Second, it's really important that enterprises are thinking about this through use cases. Technology for the heck of technology is not going to go anywhere. And so selecting the right use cases, the right models underlying it, and how do you deploy it, right? That can actually make or break your ROI. And so it's really important to have that as a fundamental way and a principle, design principle, as you think about how you adopt and scale AI. Third, which is, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more as well, is AI, for it to work, must be built responsibly. And the background and the backbone of any technology, any new technology, is trust. Now, despite recent innovations, AI still faces tremendous hurdles. It can be biased. It can be error-prone. It might hallucinate. We ourselves have seen some examples of that in the country with a lot of excitement around it, right? The bottom line is you need AI that you can trust and where you can explain the outcomes. Really, really critical. Another reason why many pilots have not made it into production is due to data quality, access, and security. So that's the fourth point. In our pilots, we found that enterprises with high data wealth, they are gaining clearly an edge and delivering up to 2 times ROI on AI projects. And the last point I want to make on this is that while early in their journeys, enterprises are calling out for help now to tie in experimentation to business value. How do you bridge that to business value? And even as they are experimenting with multiple partners and so on and so forth, that bridge to business value becomes very important. And that's where picking the right use cases and others becomes important. Now, across all of this, I said there is a sixth element, and I know Leslie touched on this, is skilling. I am a firm believer that notwithstanding all of the AI technical skilling that obviously we will need to equip our workforce with, and I've always maintained that the demographic dividend that India has, if we skill that demographic dividend properly, we can truly become the skill capital of the world. But that said, in addition to that, I think it is incumbent on all of us to teach ourselves how do we work, how do we operate with this technology. That is going to become a fundamental need for people at all levels in the organization. Because if we don't learn to do that, right, we will not succeed with this technology outpacing all of us. So I wanted to leave you with these thoughts. These are some learnings that I think we've summarized from a lot of the pilots and others that we have done and the work that we are continuing to do with clients. Now, clearly, there are enterprise considerations that are going to be clearly important. I think Leslie touched on some of this. But as enterprises start to move into both exploring, adopting, and then scaling AI, a few things to keep in perspective. Clearly, it really is important to have a strategic vision. Why are you using Gen AI? And I'll give you a little humorous example here. And this is a client of mine who is experimenting a lot with AI and others. And he told me a little story where he said, I walked out of one of the G20 summits which he was attending. This was last year. And he said, there was a lot of hype around AI. Everyone, and he's a global CIO of this enterprise. And he said, look, everyone's telling me, what are we doing with ChatGPT? What are we doing with this, that, the other? And he said, we were at an event with a lot of my business, my business clients in his organization. And he said a very senior academician actually stood up on stage and said, I've been using Metaverse for 20 years, and we should all be using it. And he said, and immediately a couple of people just reached out to him and says, why aren't we using Metaverse if he's been using it for 20 years? I mean, that in itself, he said, I had to just walk out of that room because it's not technology for the heck of technology or going with the next hype. It's about why are we wanting to use it and how can it really help our enterprise? Second, it's really important, how once you decide why you want to use AI, you have the strategy in place, it's thinking about, what models are you going to select? What is going to make most sense? What are the prioritized use cases? We also talked about data and its importance. And to be really impactful, you need to have AI that can integrate into existing workflows and systems, drive automation, and augmenting key processes. In many respects, we keep talking about artificial intelligence. I like to actually think about it as augmented intelligence, because in some respects, you are augmenting, what you do for doing things a lot better, right? Third is to really make it user-centric. It's really important that you drive experiences in a way that you understand the personas that are involved, and you design it in a way that as you infuse AI into workflows, and provide those experiences, they are easy to adopt and move forward with. The next one is obviously the operating model. And while scaling AI is important, it's really important to do that in a responsible manner. And this could mean, introducing new ways of working, you putting in place controls in terms of how it cannot be misused, policies, guidelines, frameworks, and all of the above. And lastly, I think in an AI-first world, it's going to really be important in terms of how you drive talent and culture and really having the right kind of AI skill sets, training, upskilling, not just for the people who are building these systems for you, but also the users of these applications. Really, really critical. And that's what I said. I think our chairman says it really, really well, that if we don't learn how to work with these systems, we are all going to become obsolete very, very quickly. And so, just as a quick snapshot, how are we sort of driving this at IBM? And, I just want to make the point that we have been investing in AI research for over 25 years now. There have been significant milestones, as, I'm going to point out on the slide, where we've actually gone through, this notion of machines that could think. That was sort of the initial Watson work that we did with Jeopardy and so on and so forth, right? And with sustained advancements in these technologies, right, we have truly tried to build a platform that brings together different components of what's important. So Watson.ai, which actually is a studio where you can actually build applications. WatsonX.data, which actually helps you organize the data that's required for these systems effectively. WatsonX.governance, which is a unique capability, I think, that we have as a part of our platform that enables you to create governance models for AI systems depending on different models that you're using, different use cases that you're using, and how do you make it real within the organization, and how do you keep it updated. And then clearly Watson.orchestrate, which actually helps you drive orchestration across your different processes, and Watson Code Assistant that really helps you automate IT processes and so on and so forth. And this is where I think one other point I want to make is the reason why model selection is important is what Leslie said. There are actually smaller models that can actually do the work that you need it to do and deliver the right kind of results. So for example, we just announced the general availability of Mixtral 8x7b. It's a term that we use for this model on Watson X, but it can cut latency by 75%. So smaller models are evolving now that will actually make it a lot more efficient for you to deploy these systems. And lastly, I think the thing that is really, really important is how we drive responsible AI. Through our 100+ year history, we have always put ethics at the forefront, and this is defined by our principles for trust and transparency that underpin the technology that we design and develop. That has been actually a fundamental part of the design for Watson X, and it's the rich legacy that we choose to keep alive. And at IBM, therefore, we pledge the use of responsible AI today, tomorrow, and always. So with that, back to you.
Yes, a huge round of applause is in order. Thank you so much, Sandeep sir, for taking us through some very, very key insights that are in fact going to drive the conversations for the rest of the evening. And with that, in fact, I am reminded to once again invite everybody in the room to please join us in taking these conversations online, ladies and gentlemen. And when you do that, don't forget to tag Live Mint and also use hashtag AI for Business and hashtag Responsible AI. As you can see, we're setting the stage. We're taking all the insights that we've gathered from Leslie and Sandeep and moving into the next conversation. But I must remind you that while our first two speakers have spoken about, given us a sneak peek, I'd say, into scaling AI, into trusting it, talking about the role of autonomous agents, starting with the business problem and not with the technology. Wow, I thought that was an incredible nugget of wisdom that Leslie very, very casually dropped there. And Sandeep, of course, thank you for taking us through the foundation of tech at IBM. Thank you for introducing us to the AI-first world. You know, like he rightly said, across countries, Indian enterprises are very clearly outshining the rest of the globe in exploring and in deploying AI. And I think that is more than enough a reason for us to dive into our next panel. In fact, Gen AI presents an opportunity for exponential growth. That's set already. 90% of CEOs expecting their C-suite teams to shape adoption. And in the next 2 years, 85% expect AI to interact directly with the customers. Clearly, be it strategic investments or be it empowering individuals with skills, like Sandeep rightly said, both the builders and the users, all of this is going to catalyze a multiplier effect for businesses. And amongst all of this, 2024, this year, ladies and gentlemen, calls for robust AI policies, greater focus on LLMs, focusing on accuracy and factuality, and even training data to prevent biases and hallucinations. All of this and more, let's invite our next panel for today to kickstart this much-awaited conversation. First up, I'm going to invite our moderator for this panel, making a comeback on the stage. Please put your hands together for Leslie, everybody. Welcome, Leslie, and give me one quick moment. I'm going to quickly make my way back to the stage and ask you, Leslie, are you set for this conversation? Yes, okay, Leslie has something. Okay, we've got a hard stop here. Okay, going ahead, let's invite our panelists on stage. Mohit Kapoor, Group CTO, Mahindra Group. Gobind Jain, CFO, Indus Bank. Rajkamal Vempati, President and Head Human Resources, Axis Bank, Rishi Arora, Managing Partner, India South Asia, IBM Consulting. And we're going to keep this conversation crisp and brief. Leslie, over to you.
Thank you, Zinia. You know, typically you may be wondering why the lady is sitting at their far end. It's just because Rajkamal has a hard stop at 6:30, and she will have to excuse herself from the panel. So I promised her, so please do not, there's no kind of bias out here. So folks, actually I'm going to start with you, Rajkamal, without much ado, because I think people know the context of this entire panel, where we are talking about, you know, responsibly scaling up AI. Now, when we speak about, you know, the human resources department is one of the crucial kind of departments where we are talking about, you know, challenges like whether it's bias while looking at the resume, whether ageism could be a bias, or there could be many other kind of things. But first, let us start with a few, you know, a couple of opportunities that you see out here, how Gen AI has helped you streamline things in the HR department, then we can talk a little bit on the challenges.
I can, you know, so maybe let me just step back. Human resource department is about Vyavhar typically. Everybody is about Vyapar. And there is no Vyapar without Vyavhar. And the beauty is Gen AI is making inroads in the wonderful space of Vyavhar, right? Even in human resources, and I'm surprised, you know, we talk about content generation. We have, all of us have big learning teams, and we are looking at how to learn, rescale, upscale, etc. Typically, and I'm just giving a simple example, like content generation, creation would take 2 months to get the syndication done, understand what needs to be done, learning objectives, so that it's 2 months. With Gen AI, believe you me, we've reduced it to 20 minutes.
Wow.
20 minutes. With all these, you know, SOP, especially process, etc. It's 20 minutes flat. So huge productivity gains, but there's a lot of learning. And I like what he said. You know, we start sometimes using technology for the sake of using technology. Oh, this is the new fad. This is the new flavor of the season. This is the new item number. And then we say, okay, let's figure out the use cases. Fundamentally, we need to say, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? And if you go deep down, the POCs will stick, scale up, the pilots will be successful, and definitely productivity gains will happen. And also, the objective should be about problem, not cost. Not about other things, right? It should be an enabler. From a hiring perspective, we know increasingly in the world, we know, like computers, when it happened, we said, oh, computers will replace. Then we said, no, we need people who know computer skills. Gen AI is also like that. We need people who know Gen AI skills. As far as all the, you know, we've done in HR, we've done talent marketplace, we are trying to do something. See, I would say more the traditional AI was more bias prone. Because you were looking at predictive models and past experiences, past data, and that's what you are trying to propagate, which is not okay in an inclusive setup, and you want a little bit of diversity as well. With Gen AI, more than bias, I would say it's hallucinations I'm worried about. And we need to think about guardrails. And one of the ways that we are looking at is in selection, when you get the CV screened a certain way, you get the feedback, and we are trying to validate it. And we are going a little slower on the screening process because you don't want to get into something and then realize that you're perpetuating a certain clone in a certain template. And if you're looking at internal talent marketplace in a different way, we are also saying, how do you bring the diversity of experiences and skills? The third area that I think we should look at from a structure perspective, and I'm just, even though you didn't ask, is having someone, I completely agree, a dedicated team who's looking at it responsibly. Because, you know, actually we're talking about downstream problems. The upstream problems are the ones that we need to have view on. A lot of time even in our organization, we spend time, what kind of AI, what kind of models, privacy, responsibility, privacy. especially given the servers are elsewhere, we have to think, especially as regulated entities, we have those questions to be. So think risk first when you're scaling it up. If you have the answers and somebody looking at it, things will be easier. Future is interesting for HR professionals. We have lots of skills that we need to hire people from, for even in training. What can I say about other organizations? In training, one of the things that we are looking at is, this, I'm calling them learning anthropologists, who are looking at behaviors, journeys, etc. Because for you to ask the better prompts, you need to know what's happening in the journey of the person. So newer skills will emerge. And I would say, prompt engineers, anyways, there's an article in Mint today that prompt engineers are demanding. So every few years, somebody comes in and demands, and you say, I missed the bus. I just landed in HR. But I think there are so many courses out there. We can all upskill ourselves and reskill ourselves and become the prompt engineers that we always wanted to be.
So I'm sure if you had stuck around, you would have plenty of questions from the audience. I won't say that you're spared of it, but I guess because of your time. But I love the comparison that you made, Vyavhar and Vyapar. So that was pretty interesting. Mohit, my question to you is basically, what's your, company's broad Gen AI kind of vision out here?
So I think we have a predominant Indian audience, so I don't need to explain the Mahindra Group. I think for us, this is the decade of the AI in many ways. And it started before Gen AI became, known by everyone a year ago. But right when 2000 started, we've been on it. You can imagine connected cars are safer and are preventing accidents. And with XUV700 we launched 3 years ago. It is a perfect example. I drive that car. It's able to see somebody crossing the road before I'm able to see it. And that's a boon in many ways. Precision agriculture, if you're able to help a farmer get more from the acreage of land, with AI models, we are able to advise farmers what to plant, when to harvest, how to irrigate, and what pesticide to do topically, so that you don't spray pesticide all over, where to spray it using drones. Similarly, in Mahindra Finance, how to lend responsibly and make collections efficiency better. I'm sure there are other banking people as well in the stage later. They can talk more about it. Similarly, in used cars, which is Mahindra First Choice, being able to give a deal to somebody by looking at high quality photographs of tires and battery and the bodywork. Also, lots of innovation within manufacturing. We are predominantly a manufacturing company. We have 16 factories all over the world, and most of them in India. And within manufacturing, lots of testing, painting of the surface, energy saving, so also sustainability. You can imagine it's a very energy intensive job to make automobiles. So how to use AI models to save energy. So that's been the journey for the last many years, especially since last year we took an early bet on Gen AI. I see 4 clusters of Gen AI which we've been successfully scaled up. One is around customer service with a human in the loop. How can our customer service agents on live chat, on live call, give better advice to the customer and help them, whether it's a query or sales and marketing, could be any of that. Second is technical, and this has worked very well for us. You can imagine machines in factories which have large manuals written in German, English, any other language. And what we've been able to do is get all the machine manuals and all the 10 years of log of how a particular problem may have been addressed on the shop floor. And this is available to all the shop engineers and supervisors. They can quickly put in the error code or put in what they're seeing as a symptom and get a result. Also equipping our service centers, which are run by dealers, with service automobiles, with Gen AI powered troubleshooting. And you can imagine a lot of calls are logged in saying, "Aage khat khat awaaz aa rahi hai." That's all. That's how the call is logged. Yeah.
Okay, please give her a big hand.
Oh, okay.
So sorry.
Thank you very much.
So these things, so the power of Gen AI and the unlock isn't humanly possible. It is not just digital. So this knowledge base of repairing cars has been available digitally and searchable. But you cannot search on khat khat awaaz. Because when you say cut awaj, it gives you 30 knowledge articles. And as a supervisor of a service center, you read all 30 articles to find out which one is yours. But in the conversational manual of GenAI, it'll ask you, have you checked the shockers? Have you checked the bonnet, whatever, right? And it gets to the solution so that the customer promised time of returning your car after service on the same day. Most likely, if you give the car in the morning, by evening, I should give it back to you. Minus the cut awaj, right? So these kind of use cases, which are in technical areas, and technology, of course, on coding and sales and marketing, analysis and analytics as well in finance. So we've been able to, fast track the work. And for doing all this, we've developed our in-house platform called Mahindra AI, which is multi-model. It has many of the models available as a model garden. And then based on whether it's structured data or text, the model is chosen and then gives the right solution. So that's where we are. I think the journey is only starting up because with images, video capability, we'll be able to unlock a lot more. Imagine a dealership where a broken spare part is there of a car. You can just take a photo. It should tell you what part number it is, where is the stock lying, if it's not with you, which other dealer, and instantly. Currently, it takes a lot of time where you have to figure out, look at the manual, figure out what part number is. Also, it's not intuitive to know that this tractor part in this UO model also works in a JITO model. Right? They're two different kind of tractors. It's not intuitive, but a GenAI model will tell you or can tell you there's this reusable part. So lots of these things which we thought would take years to accomplish on using the traditional AI or AI have been fast-tracked with GenAI. So that's been our journey. So I think just three words. If data is available, accessible, and actionable, then we apply AI on it. Whether it's traditional or GenAI, that can be decided later. But all that is fair game. And 3 areas to focus on: customer centricity, sustainability, and innovation. So we're focusing those. ROI will come or is coming. Of course, that lens is important. Govind will talk about that lens shortly before he approves my use cases. But absolutely, that's where we're going. Thank you.
Interesting, and you gave a lot of specific examples also, and that I think helps a lot to understand how GenAI is actually being applied. We have heard an HR kind of perspective. We have heard the IT perspective, the CTO, CIO perspective. Now the interesting part is hearing the perspective of a person who holds the purse strings for GenAI. So here we have a CFO sitting with us, that of a highly regulated bank. I mean, all banks are highly, the whole BFSI sector. So Govind Jain, who is the CFO of Ind Bank, he's with us, and I've had an interesting conversation with him before this. So Govind, you could tell our audience, in a sense, when we talk about GenAI, when people come and approach, the CIO, the CTO, absolutely the CMO, the CDOs, everybody just comes to you and asks for money for this new emerging technology. What is your perspective? Are you as excited as all of them? What are the hard questions that you ask?
Definitely means the power of GenAI is unlimited, provided you have got the necessary data to feed it. So if you have captured the data, I think it has application in every field you can think of, be it your customer interaction. So if you have all the customer related data, you can improve on the customer interactions and tailor-made your products according to the customer needs. Your call center can be replaced with GenAI, which can make a call to customer based on the specific requirements, how they are interacting with the bank, what kind of transactions they are doing. They can call back and understand if they are facing any problem. And when you build that empathy into GenAI, it's an amazing customer experience. Then we get a lot of information getting generated every day. So AI can work behind the scene for our cybersecurity, data protection, fraud detection. So any anomaly happening in the system, once you have created that kind of logic or algorithm, system can online track whether any unusual activity is happening anywhere. Then you got all sort of application. You can have interaction with regulation, lot of information we generate every day for submission to RBI, SEBI, or everywhere. So that information, once it goes through Gen AI, it can start finding out how accurate your data is. Whether there are inconsistencies in reporting, it can immediately identify. Even for debt recoveries, you can customize your AI accordingly. HR, as Rajkamal mentioned, a lot of application there. Within technology itself, you can improve the technology through Gen AI. So everybody now, see, we have got limitation of budget, how much we can spend. So everybody competes for the same resource. So only thing is, what is the philosophy of organization? How does it want to tread this kind of journey? And what is the problem statement? And what is it where it wants to have kind of long-term plan? We can't think of in a short-term, 1 year kind of thing. And second, now technology is all changing. Every day, something new will come up. Now, Gen AI has become fad, something else may come tomorrow. So you have to have kind of calculated investment. So one, take care of immediate needs, and second, you are prepared for the scalability of that technology.
I think very valid points, I mean, in a sense from a CFO perspective, because these are important things. Rishi, in your case, you are talking to multiple CXOs across sectors. So what are you gathering from your conversations? And are they clear about, when that transition happens from, say, classical or discriminative AI to your generative AI?
So what I'm going to talk about, and what I've heard, right, what I'm gathering from these conversations, an HR view, a tech view, CFO view, it resonates, it will resonate pretty well. And I'm going to quote from, some research, right? So IBM conducts this research, right? IBM's Institute of Business Value, right? And when we talk to chief execs across organizations, right, about 90% of them say that they want adoption. They want their directs to ensure adoption of AI in their organizations. I'm hearing the same from, across departments, be it HR, be it finance, be it technology, right? So adoption of, adoption of AI. Then when we talk to the execs in these, in these organizations, 85% of these execs believe that their customers, end of the day, we are in business for our customers, right? 85% of the execs believe their customers either have embarked on these journeys or will start using AI in some shape or form over the next 2 years, right? So, adoption of Gen AI is key. Now let me talk about, how do you really start adopting AI, right? First, what do you really need to adopt AI, right? Let me first start by talking about what Rajkamal spoke, HR, right? So one is, most importantly, I think people are going to drive adoption of AI. So how do you upskill your people, right? And by upskilling, I don't only mean technical upskilling, right? You need to ensure that AI is not only productive for your organization, you have to have, it has to be creative, right? How do you drive innovation across your organization? But most importantly, according to me, it has to be ethical, right? How do you really trust the models, trust the outcomes of these models, right? So, AI has to be ethical. So one, investment in the people, and second is investment in technology, right? Right investment in technology, right? I think that's going to drive adoption of AI. Then it's all about use cases, right? It's all about a return of investment. AI can be used across organizations, but what are those use cases, right? Mohit spoke a lot about his customers, right? Mahindra's customers, right? So I believe, there is a huge use case around the front end, if I can say, around customer experience, around customer servicing. The points which, which Mohit spoke about, right, is all about enhancing customer service and customer experience, right? So there are huge use cases around the front end or the customer experience bit. Govind spoke a lot about, the risk part of it, right? And in the financial services industry, compliance is a must. There are tons of regulations which all of us need to follow, right? So use cases around risk and compliance, right? Again, huge use cases around risk and compliance. In IBM, again, Raj Kamal spoke about HR, right? In IBM, we have, talent transformation, if I can call it, right? We have implemented, we call it Ask HR in our organization, but we have implemented Ask HR across IBM, right? And I'm pretty proud to say that, 94% of our responses using Ask HR, right, have met with the desired results, right? So there are huge use cases around talent transformation. Again, there are use cases around, anything which is very heavy on process, right? Operations side of things, right? So operations efficiency, if I can call it. How do you, again, Govind spoke about a lot of automation, right? So there are use cases around, operations efficiency, right? So if I can just summarize, 2023 was the year where you were seeing a lot of proof of concepts happening. Sandeep spoke about that. He said we across the globe about 700 POCs, but I think we are at the cusp of AI making real impact to business in 2024, and all the data, all the research which we have done points that 2024 is going to deliver real benefits from AI.
Thanks, Rishi. So clearly, I mean, this is the kind of a common refrain that 2024 year is the year for generative AI. But in this context also, Mohit, I would like you to, touch upon a little of the challenges. I know that Rishi has spoken a lot about the use cases that are already there, where they have address some of these challenges. But in your particular case now, you're the conglomerate. So you are dealing with finance, with agriculture, with multiple kind of business units. Is there kind of a responsible AI framework that you have, that encompasses all these, addresses all these challenges?
Yeah. So I think out of the responsible AI, ethical AI, and explainable AI, we are focusing most on the explainable AI. Responsible and ethics, I think everybody follows as a company. That's the hallmark of the Mahindra Group, and I'm sure for other companies equally. In the explainable AI side, we are ascertaining that three things: hallucinations, copyright infringement, and data confidentiality is taken care of. And that's why we got forced to develop the Mahindra AI container, which is a one-way container on the cloud, where you can upload in the container any Mahindra document without any risk, which you can't do on the open AI. Right? So the whole idea of Mahindra AI is that you can safely upload HR documents, finance documents, design of new cars, could be anything for that matter. You can decide whether it's only visible to you, or it's visible to your colleagues in your department, or it's visible across departments. All that is okay. You can set all that. Then you apply a model on it from the model garden, depending on whether it's structured data, image data, unstructured data. And when you apply the model, it's a one-way street where the intelligence of the model is coming in from the cloud, but you're applying it local. The insights are stored only locally. After you end your search or your query, it's gone. Right? You can copy if you want and keep the proceeds, the insights, only for yourself. So the whole approach of doing Mahindra AI was to use Gen AI models on local knowledge, which we already have. Because for a company as big as ours, which is so diversified, other than helping the customer, helping each other, itself drives so much efficiency and better customer experience. So that's been the focus. And also, I think, being real and authentic. So last year, we were trying to do a metaverse rollout for our real estate arm. Right? We solved the real problem that when you buy a real estate apartment, Normally, all the show apartments are on the ground floor. And you have to imagine how it will look if you were on the 22nd floor, right? So when we were solving this problem in the metaverse, we had to spend lots of money in actually taking drone shots, because I don't want to make it look extra appealing. When you took the metaverse experience in that building, which I'm yet to hand over to you in 2 years, to show that it's all green, it may not be. And there may be a railway line, there may be an ugly whatever, right? So that's explainable and responsible both. That if you're doing a metaverse, it's not the playverse. It is a real customer. And you are showing it to the customer. So is true for Mahindra Holidays. That if we are doing any metaverse, which we are, for our resorts, then it is, actual rendering of the real resorts. So you have to figure out why you're doing it. I think somebody often spoke about already that we shouldn't take this as a solution looking for a problem. Right? So Gen AI is not a solution looking for a problem, it's the other way around. That what are the problems to solve? And then apply AI or Gen AI for it.
In this context, there's also a quick follow-up question, which I'm going to ask Govind also. First I'll ask you, is basically a lot of Gen AI proof of concepts. They're basically being run as pilots today. How many of these POCs are being scaled up? And if they are not being scaled up, or if there's a kind of a reluctance to scale it up, why exactly is that happening? Or if they're being scaled up faster, what is working for them?
So I think in the internal use cases, almost 40% are getting scaled up. We set a very tight criteria when we start the POC to say what is the entry criteria, what is the exit criteria, and what are we going to save, so that we're not just playing with it, because the Play Sandbox is available to everyone. So if you want to POC yourself, you can go to Mahindra AI, go to the sandbox, and do it yourself with your team. You don't need to come to me. But if you come to me, then we put a parsing model, we'll put an ethics model, everything, a governance model around it, but that comes with the entry criteria. It's not very costly, but it's serious. And in such case, 40-50% or higher than 40% internally have become industrial.
That's a good number.
On the customer side, we haven't done too many. We are equipping and giving a co-pilot to the call center agents, but customer facing, I think we've done only a couple. And that's the area we are treading with caution. But internally, I think there's so much to unlock for a large group like ours. So that's our focus for now.
Okay. And probably what's helping is also that a company like IBM is probably indemnifying you against certain copyright.
That's true.
I can see a smile on Sandeep's face. Okay. Govind, the same question to you. Are you seeing these as just, because as I said, you hold the purse strings. So maybe those who speak about technology or have that technology bias have probably a different perspective. What about you? You're in a highly regulated sector, hallucinations, copyright violations, misinformation. All these could mean not only losing customer, it could mean plenty of legal suits.
Yeah. So I think biggest capability of these technologies is they can process a lot of information. There is no limit to what you can do, and you can also set the precision levels also to reduce the cost. So that's the advantage of these technologies. So be it copyright, so that Gen AI behind the scene can keep on sorting through the content which you have created or which you find in the media which is appearing, and trying to find out is there any mishap happening somewhere. So that's the biggest advantage today with GI is there. But I will say it is still evolving. In financial sector, it started with chat bots and virtual assistants. But if you look at many organizations, they are at different levels. Some of them have implemented basics. So you start doing a chat and somewhere you run into wall. The other bot says, I don't understand now what you are trying to say. And after that, what? You start again the conversation. Try to look for again another option which is similar to your problem. There are organizations which have gone beyond that, where you run the query in others and the bot really understands what's happening. So that's kind of, I'll say, different levels of, in the continuum, everybody is in this technology journey.
Rishi, again, you have been dealing with multiple CXOs, again, multiple sectors, so you have seen all kinds of sectors. Are there any areas where you have seen this reluctance to sort of, jump into the jump onto the Gen AI bandwagon?
I will not call it reluctance, but I think what are the challenges?
What is scaring them?
Yeah, what are the challenges which the industry is facing on adoption, and how do we really overcome those challenges, right? Those challenges are around, if I can call it data privacy. How do you be on the right side of regulations? At least the financial services industry is highly regulated. How do you really avoid biases? See, it is extremely important, the outcomes which you are getting from the models, right? Those outcomes need to be trusted, right? So for AI to be successful, I would say trust is a must, right? You need to trust those, you need to trust those models, right? Organizations are at different stages of adoption. I would say one, the maturity of the organization, right? Some organizations may be ahead in their, in their journey of AI adoption. Most importantly, right, organizations which are, I spoke about regulations, which are heavily regulated, right? Their journey on, Gen AI adoption would vary from organizations which are not heavily regulated, right? But at the center of all this, according to me, are elements around, one is data, right? How do you, where is the data originating from? Who is owning that data? How is the data, kind of evolving, right? So you need to, data is at the heart of any kind of AI model, right? So, how do you really trust that data? I would say the second bit is around, and Mohit alluded to that, right? Around the explainability, right? See, when you are getting these outcomes, right? You have to be able to explain those outcomes, right? So I would say the models need to be explainable and transparent, right? That will be the mantra behind the success of these AI models. Again, at IBM, Sandeep spoke about the elements of Watson, but it is how, how do you, the governance around, all of these models, right? How do you put a governance mechanisms around these models, and what's the next dot governance, kind of enables you to do that, right? So I would say these are the challenges which we need to, kind of overcome, data governance, right? To ensure that, AI journeys in organizations are successful.
We can take a couple of questions from the audience. Yes, please. If you can identify yourself, that will be nice. And if you're addressing the question to any specific panelist, that will help. Yes, please. Please help the gentleman with the mic. Just give him another mic, please. Sorry for the tech hassles. Do you have a loud voice?
Yeah, let's try.
Oh, you do have a loud one.
Unnatural anxiety, which they would have had they had a analog result, right? You can't solve the problem for me, but you can tell me that, look, sir, I'll get back to you. I'll speak to my senior. I'll come back in a week's time. Why don't you take a 30% discount in those solutions? These are analog results. These are not digital results. AI seems to suggest that, we are going to achieve this digital supremacy of a solution, whereas a lot of customers in Mahindra Holidays, for example, right, they look for an analog result. So my room was dirty, and you say, yeah, we'll get that fixed, but why don't we do this for you?
Okay, let's take the question first. It's getting yes, please.
Okay, so do customers have unnatural anxiety? I think as society and as an industry, and I would say this on, I think majority of our industries have matured. Manu, right? Yeah, Manu. I think our majority of our industries have matured. See, it is all about how well these, these models are responding, right? We are implementing AI or we are executing proof of concepts, many discussions happening in, across sectors, right? Across industries, right? So, in majority of the cases, what we have kind of seen is that I would say near 100%, if I can say that, right? I think responses are acceptable to clients. In some cases where you need some kind of interaction, right? Even when I quoted the example, for example, I quoted, we use Ask HR in our own organization. Yet, I would say 94% of our responses are, I said 94% of our responses are solved, in a straightforward way. 6% of the responses need some kind of, interactions with people kind of thing, right? So I would say a simple answer to your question, I think as an industry we have matured. It all depends on how well these models are designed, right? And in majority of the cases, I don't see customers having that anxiety, but you have to close the journey. In the sense, if there is some kind of an interaction needed, right? How do you logically close that journey if there is a get back which is required? And in some cases, there may be a get back which is required. You have to logically have a closure on that journey.
I think Mohit wants to add.
Yeah, I want to add two things. I think preferences are changing. My son is 25. He has anxiety trusting people and getting advice from people. He's a gamer, and he's very, very conversant with, he'll trust the AI more. Now, I don't know whether his future is bright or not, but we leave that aside. That's one. Second, I think human in the loop is the right way because the AI bot lacks empathy. So I absolutely agree with you. And that's why our approach, at least in Mahindra Group, is about equipping the sales agent, call center agent, service agent with better advice and empowerment to say option 1, option 2, option 3. So on the dirty room, like you talked about, right? If somebody is complaining about dirty room, you have to be empathetic to start with before you disregard somebody, which depending on the mood of the call center agent and the training and the time of the day may end up, without prompting, may end up with not a great result or great experience. So the idea is how do we equip our people, our colleagues, a lot better to be empathetic and to solve your problem. That's our attempt. And I think in that attempt, it is surely making human beings better. So super smart agents don't get better with Gen AI. Mediocre agents become a lot better with Gen AI. So I'm trying to move the company up. I'm not trying to remove expertise. The company across the group is dependent on lots of experts, and we have many of them across the group, not just a thin layer. Many thousands of people across the group are very, very smart. They have expertise. But it can't be a universal trait. AI is helping us, and in software development, I'm seeing it every day, right? So my software developers, the average coders, all of them have gone up. And the expert coders, they don't worry about AI. They don't even use it because it's so good. I don't need to ask them about their productivity. and it's happening all over. So that's the way I would look at it, Manu.
Great. So thank you, Mohit. Any further questions? We can take it offline with the thing. So thank you, Rishi. Thank you, Govind. Thank you, Mohit.
Thank you for inviting us.
A little bit of healthy anxiety is good, I guess, at this point in time. Oh, okay.
The LLMs really help. So when virtual assistant you start interacting there, it depends upon what you have set up. So the moment they recognize a particular word, room is not clean, all these, they immediately can respond also. So you need not necessarily go through a fixed menu also sometimes.
So probably we can feed them with anxiety is good. Anyway, so thank you for being a patient audience. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Let's have a huge round of applause for our first power panel. And thank you for asking the most pertinent questions. Thank you once again, gentlemen. How to see that responsible and grounded tech emerges, shaping the future of industries and transforming our relationship with tech. According to Forbes, a staggering 90% of Gen AI pilots actually never make it to production, which actually sparks a very crucial inquiry into what is this business's untapped potential. Today, ladies and gentlemen, a very distinguished panel of technology and business leaders are going to join us here on stage in a couple of seconds. They're going to unravel the intricacies and rather answer those very pressing questions that surround the challenges and even the opportunities that come with navigating the Gen AI landscape. Welcome to this very insightful fireside chat on a topic that is both, I think, very promising, but also very, very challenging. It's called How to Smoothly Scale Gen AI in Your Enterprise. Time to invite our panelists on stage. Of course, moderating this discussion is Leslie. Leslie, I'm going to request you to please join me once again on stage. And without any further ado, I'll invite our panelists, Ramesh Lakshmi Narayanan, CIO, HDFC Bank; Arvind Iyer, Head Marketing, Pyramid Capital and Housing Finance Limited; and Vishwanath Ramaswamy, Vice President, Technology Sales, India, South Asia, IBM. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a powerful round of applause for a power panel so that they can give us powerful insights. You know how it works. All right, Leslie, over to you.
Which places did not have this? So we have banking, we have again pyramidal finance, of course we have the infrastructure part from IBM to get a better understanding of what we have already spoken, taking the topic further. Without much ado, Ramesh, we have spoken on so many occasions. I have sort of, yeah, I would say I've tracked the journey of how HDFC moved through your conversations, seeing how you have adopted AI over a period of time. I think that conversation we have been having for the last decade, if I'm not mistaken. Right from SMAC, from getting on to cloud computing, then adding the SMAC I to it, and then moving on to AI, and now of course we're talking about generative AI. So when we're talking about generative AI, that whole transition, when you quickly tell us what are the kind of benefits or the opportunities that you're seeing as you're moving into this space, how it is helping in productivity, efficiency, given that yours is a highly regulated sector?
So I think very I think rich set of cue that we got from the earlier panel, and it's no different where we are going with that. So from a it's a world that's evolving right now, Leslie. I don't think we've kind of understood it fully. Let me be very honest about it. Okay, that's the first thing I want to kind of say. If it's very, very, I think, very initial days of Gen AI. There's lots and lots of time to go. I know it's come at us like a meteor, and now we kind of looking at it and saying, what do we do with it? Bank, the journey of HDFC Bank in that sense, and it's a regulated entity, so I think we just need to be a little bit more careful. But there is tremendous power. Again, AI by itself is not new. Anybody would tell you AI has been there for ages, and banks were probably one of the earliest adopters in that sense in credit and fraud, because those were the first areas to really look at AI as a decision-making capability. But Gen AI is kind of evolving, and see, the way we see is that it's not my terminology, but I borrowed it from Google, which is very interesting, is that we look at it from two sides actually. We look at AI as what the classical AI as the left side of the brain actually, and what we look at the Gen AI as the conversational or narrative AI, which is the right side of the brain. So, both have to coexist and both have to kind of move forward. As an example, if you want a decision in a banking industry saying stop a particular transaction from fraud, it's a binary 1-0 decision based on predictions and previous behavior. Maybe a classical AI will work far better there today. While on the other side, if you have to kind of look at it and say, hey, look, give me a narration or give me a concise report of a particular, credit analysis, that will be the Gen AI side. So Gen AI is kind of more and more on the right side at this point of time. I know there are certain areas where the intersection is started happening, which is time series intersection on LLMs, but it's a topic that's still evolving. Coming back to the bank, so we look at it, the evolution from both sides. Gen AI specifically, most of the usage has happened on the public AI models right now. So when you look at public AI, what I mean is openly available AI, where you can put any data on the table. And what we are slowly shifting to is how do we get our private data onto a model that we can kind of do on our own, and then kind of tune the data. The use cases are phenomenal, but getting the architecture of the Gen AI is extremely critical. That's what the discussion today is. And I'll tell you, that's a bigger battle at this point of to surmount. Where do the GPU computes come from? Can I go on public cloud? How do I do a vector DB based segregation? How does a LangChain play?
I'll be coming to the challenges.
We'll get into all of those discussions as we go along. But creating the infrastructure is a first impediment, and we are kind of working in a dual mode, what we call as the on-prem mode of looking at the Gen AI. We're also trying to see how to look at public AI in some spaces. And I'll talk about the use cases as we go along in the discussion, because there are multiple use cases. It's imagination.
It will be nice if you gave a couple of...
Let me tell you what we are doing. One is very interesting is, I believe statement is a very, very important asset that the banks carry, but it's a dumb asset at this point of time. Imagine if you could talk to your statements or converse with your statements, how beautiful it would be. Why do you have to go to a mobile, download a statement, put it in an Excel, find an entry, this particular SI was paid on this particular date. I mean, just tell the statement that tell me when was my last SI paid for this particular company. It's a very powerful use case in the hand of the customer. But someone like in the earlier session said, Mohit said that, look, we also want to do co-piloting. So a lot of our, for example, our RBI regulation policies, just the interpretation of those policies, it's public data. But, reading through these policies, interpreting it and understanding, people don't have time and also the depth to do it. Some of these areas, we have started using, Gen AI in that sense. So like I said, very interestingly, and I'll talk what is the art of the future. These are some of the use cases that we started working on, but it's early days, as I said, the creating the right infrastructure. I've also been involved with some of the infrastructural groups. For example, can I do a on-prem model on Gen AI from a co-hosting perspective? I've also been talking to, for example, Bharat GPT is a very key initiative that some of you may not be associated with, but it's a very important initiative. I believe one of the biggest power is the regional language control, and we will get out of the English slavery using the LLM. I'm very, very confident about it. And that's also going to change the financial sector in a big way, because the accessibility of the language and the barrier is still a barrier. We still think we have done brilliantly as a digital economy, but there's still more to be done actually. So that's where we are going.
Yeah, good observation. I mean, I'm glad you gave those examples, and since we are speaking about Bharat GPT, of course, I think you are referring to the Bharat GPT program, right? Yeah, by the 7 IITs and 2
Yes,
triple IITs.
yes, Leslie.
So they have got what is known as the Hanuman series, the foundation models, which I think are going to be anywhere between 4 billion parameters and 40 billion parameters. But these are totally localized kind of LLMs that India is planning to build. Of course, then we have a host of other ones like Project Indus from the Mahindra Group itself, Tech Mahindra, and then of course Krutrim and some others. So about 8 to 10 kind of LLMs. Yeah, interesting that you said it. In your case, Arvind, you're also from a regulated entity and Piramal Housing and Finance. Now, typically when CMO comes, and Tuhina will smile, I can see her smiling already. So when you talk about the CMO functions, that's another very strong area where Gen AI is being put to use. Could you give us some, tell us about how you are looking at this entire space and some examples that will help us understand how you're implementing it?
Yeah, okay. I'll probably start with the story of who we are and what we do. We are a relatively new company. I mean, the Piramal Group has been around for a while, but the kind of business we do, which is, we lend to the budget Bharat customer. So this is typically, somebody who's in tier 2 towns, has a very small wallet size, and probably is running, to give you an example, a Kirana store, and perhaps, the wife and the husband are both engaged in the same business. And when you talk about how do you make them credit worthy, that's a whole different challenge, right? So what kind of underwriting, credit, risk models would you be able to use when there is not enough paperwork about them? So I think the genesis of the business started from there. And thankfully, we've had the dividend of being a cloud-first company as a result of that. So I think what we've done is, so because of this, and a large part of our marketing is been very hinterland based. It's very touch and feel. I mean, the customer is somebody who you need to really, really interact with. It's a very high touch, sort of environment. But having said that, there is the fact that we scaled pretty in a non-linear manner, because we did acquire DHFL 2 years ago, and we were in about half the pin codes of the country overnight. And that naturally meant that, like you said, Ramesh, having linguistic capability of being able to talk to every different kind of customer with a cultural nuance is not something that comes naturally. So we've spent a lot of time doing that kind of work. We've experimented with Bhashni. We are now really looking forward to what Bharat GPT does. So a lot of NLP related work is something that we are fronting. But at the same time, we love our tools. So there is this whole thing about being able to create content, being able to create like text-based, not just multimodal, but just text-based information that can be put out. And we've tried to use that to stuff that's more that's more like stuff that needs to be said during the course of the interaction or transaction with the customer, where it's just information that needs to be disseminated in a certain manner. And how do you do that at scale? So that's what you use text for. But really, if you were to talk about the other side of it, which is really images and videos, I don't think we're in a place where we could pick up something right up that's there and pretty much just use it. I mean, anecdotally, I could tell you that you will find an example. You'll find a blog article that's written about Midjourney. So there's this guy who wrote about 2 world leaders engaging in a basketball game, and he entered that prompt in 2023. And it gave him basically like garbage, right? And by 2024, when he repeated the same thing again, Midjourney was able to give him something that looks absolutely stunning. Interestingly, we took some of our own outputs that came straight out of Midjourney or DALL-E or any of those, and we showed them to some of our customers. उन्होंने क्या कहा पता है? पता है कि यार ये तो बहुत अच्छा दिख रहा है, लेकिन ये असली में कौन है? So they're not able to believe it's real. So we've used a very pick up and try and experiment. We are always in beta, we are always agile, but we are really not pinning down on anything that we want to particularly do. There are a ton of use cases. I think even the previous panel did speak about it, which is about making sure that there is a lot of the democratization of data that can happen within the company, and we're doing that a lot more. And we're seeing, because even the internal employee for us is a customer, right? At the end of the day, I mean, if like how Mohit said, if the middle tier of our workforce is able to be productive by, let's say, another 30% more. And if you're able to give them something that is more gamified, we've literally given them like an equivalent of a computer G, where they can go and ask, where do I stand today, and how can I beat the other guy? That's a far more, better use case for us to able to take and scale over time.
Great. Vishy, I have taken the liberty of calling him Vishy. In your particular case, you also, just like Rishi, you speak to multiple partners, so you have got a 360-degree view across sectors. So are you seeing, enough companies making this jump from, say, pilots to scaling up? And if they're doing so, what is it that they're doing right, or what is it that they're doing wrong in the process?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Leslie. I think, as the previous panel had mentioned, right, so if 2023 or late 2022 was a year where AI was like kind of a hobby for most of the CXOs, it's become real in 2024, right? And 2024 will be probably remembered as one of the historic years where AI is going to go at scale, right? You mentioned that, and Sandeep also did mention, the adoption index across clients is just increasing, not by the year, I would say by every quarter, right? And pilots are getting converted into real projects across use cases. So there are two dimensions to this. One is a dimension which is horizontal, which is cutting across your clients, your stakeholders, and your employees, and your suppliers as well, that is one dimension. The other dimension is looking at different various use cases across departments. So the point what Arvind mentioned or Ramesh mentioned, and even the previous panel, that use cases are getting built and grown over a period of time, and that becomes a challenge, or I would say, I think Manu had asked a question of anxiety, that becomes even more anxious to build and convert and make it more real, right? So it is happening at a very fast rate. Now the organizations which have really got that act right is fundamentally, I would say, there is no AI without IA, right? You don't have an AI if you don't have the right information architecture. And one of the charts which was presented, data matters, right? And if you do not have your data pipeline in place, no matter whatever intelligence you put, you're not going to get the relevant output. It's as straight correlation as you can get, right? So data matters, and real IA can generate a real, more accurate AI, generative AI as well. Where I think a lot of challenges which really come in, where organizations are not able to scale further, right, is where they fundamentally don't have an IA, right? So in that anxiety to be another AI in use case for the sake of being an AI, if you don't have your foundation in place, so I would kind of put it like IA is more like the digestive system and AI is the nervous system, right? They have to coexist, right? And that's really where organizations are not got that right, and they're not able to convert pilots into real projects where the data is not there. The second thing is there's a plethora of use cases, and that's where ruthless prioritization of that use case is important. So in the anxiety that I want to have AI across pervasive everywhere, rather you ruthlessly prioritize which use case you would first go with for getting better ROI, right? So it could be an HR use case, like Rishi talked about what we implement within IBM as a Ask HR, or it could be a channels, ecosystem, it could be marketing, it could be finance, and so on and so forth. So you really prioritize of what is it solving as a business outcome and the ROI behind it. And Gobind also really touched upon it briefly as well, right? So ruthless prioritization also is an important factor of what would you take to convert that pilot to a real-time project, right? I think these are the two fundamental things which makes organizations successful with AI and not so successful with AI, right? So that's how I'd put it at.
Oh, that's extremely well said. I mean, the ruthless prioritization, and who better to, than Ramesh to ask about the ruthless prioritization, and then, of course, I'll follow up with Arvind too. So, Ramesh, in your particular case, of course, from the challenges point of view, I think with generative AI, it was with AI also with GANs and all that kind of stuff. We had deep fakes. Now it's getting to voice cloning. It's getting to many other things that are, making even probably the video KYC process quite challenging for that matter of fact. That's one part of it. The second part of it is, as what Vishy pointed out, from the information architecture point of view. Now you are dealing with multiple legacy platforms that you have to integrate with these newer kind of platforms. So if you could just tell us a bit of, quickly about some of the challenges that you're facing and how are you addressing them?
I think all the points well made. The challenges first of all, on the IA side are very real, like Vishy said. I think if you don't get your data right, you can try what you want to do, because that's the fundamental foundation on which it is built, right? So, and that needs a lot of thought process, because it's okay to guzzle billions of public data and then put it into a model and then show something. So, it's going to be expensive. Maybe we can keep kind of talking about it. And especially for regulated entities more so, Leslie, because you don't have the ability to really go to the cloud on an open basis and do something experimentation, because you have to really do something on the ground and kind of ensure that it's in line with the regulation. And there will be a lot of paraphernalia which will come on top of the information security world. It has to kind of come on top of that as well. So I think the creation of the infrastructure, and what is the right infrastructure? Is it an on-prem, it's a cloud, it's kind of a hybrid? All of that questions will come as a challenge for sure, and we really need to kind of deep dive. Third part is fraud and security. I do think, like you said, deep fake and some of the other fraud things are real, because again, especially in an economy of our size and scale today, and the kind of digitization we have seen, video KYC probably, for example, a lot of the other nations are in that sense still behind us, and so we have probably some of these problems will hit us first, actually, to be honest, and then of course I also see somewhere in that horizon the quantum compute coming through, and with the LLM kind of coming through in a big way. The security parameters are going to be absolutely different. Of course, we also see that AI for AI kind of coming in and helping, and that play out, whether it's tuning the models, whether using AI to again further kind of fine tune your own fraud models and stuff like that, and we'll see where it goes. But clearly, like you said, challenges are on infrastructure fund, challenges are on ROI, which is a very, very real challenge. We have to get. I think we should not rush through. I think one of the other things is every company should not be pushing, saying, I'll do 10 things. You'd rather pick 2 things, but those 2 things have to be done in a way that the ROIs are justified from a CFO perspective. And then, of course, fraud and all of these challenges will continue. So, net, yeah, those are the areas we'll have to watch for.
I think you also have come back to that same thing of ruthless prioritization. I like that. Arvind, in your case, you don't have the legacy problems as such. So what does this whole stress on IA mean for you? From a challenge perspective, from an architecture perspective, what kind of framework would you be working on?
So currently, to be very precise, we are more like a garage at the moment. There's just no other better way of saying it. If we've been told otherwise, I think we haven't seen it in the works. So what we've essentially done is we've said that. So our entire underwriting fraud credit risk model is all built on a traditional AI. In fact, we call it the Malai sandwich. It's MLAI. So adding the generative layer on top is something that we've been careful about. Yeah, it's kind of really fancy. But then we said there are 3 things we really want to do. One is we want to stay agile. We always want to be in beta. And the third thing is we want to be able to see if there is some sort of rapid prototyping that we can do and then get it out there and see if it scales. But then again, like I think Sandeep said earlier, start with a problem statement so we started with saying that what is it that we underlyingly want this to solve for us. And we said that, look, there is a lot of our data is very much on the cloud, and the fact that even if we are able to democratize that information for a set of cohorts where you would typically need, let's say, either it's manpower or it's tech infrastructure or any of the other investments that may be needed, you kind of try to see if you can eliminate that layer by using this. And we've done a few pilots there, and some of them have scaled across the organization, and we're fairly happy with the way the version 1.0 has kind of turned out to be. But really, I think we're constantly just looking at what's the next problem that we can pick up that we could potentially try and solve using GenAI, because it's like, you know, how Ramesh said, it's the kind of compute power that is needed if you were to 10x the number of users who are going to be querying the LLM every time is going to be monstrous. So one needs to be, you know, careful about that. So while we're not saying ROI really, we're just saying what's the cost of being able to do this using generative AI vis-a-vis doing it the traditional method, and then looking at and being ruthlessly honest on saying, you know, are we making the right calls at that moment? Yeah. And sticking with those.
Fair enough. Vishy, in your case, I mean, you're dealing with big companies, you're dealing with small companies, some like Arvind also probably, where they may have different sets of questions. If you were to just say, okay, among your ruthless priorities, as you said, I'm stuck with that. Three things that CXOs need to keep in mind when, you know, looking at the infrastructure point of view as far as GenAI is concerned.
Right. So let me first define infrastructure, right? So it's infrastructure more colloquially means hardware, right? But I would like to put in a larger canvas to that word called infrastructure. It's infrastructure as hardware, plus what Ramesh spoke about, the security principles around that infrastructure to run an AI model, and probably even the biases and ethics and explainability to that, right? So it kind of look at infrastructure with a larger canvas and just not purely from a GPU or a CPU, or do I have this compute, right? So let's go to the first one on the hardware, right? So if you look at generative AI, there are fundamentally two broad principles, or I would say outcomes. One is you have a model which is trained, and then you use that trained model to make an inference, right? So the myth is that if it's a trained model and you're not retraining the model, you can run it on CPUs, right? So you don't require, and I kind of define CPU and GPU as CPU is a jet, but a GPU is a jet which can multitask, right? So a GPU can run much faster, more, yes, all of the capabilities are there. But if you already have a trained model which you do not require a retraining, a CPU can do the job, right? And in IBM, as we have multiple technologies based on the Linux one, where we have a Telum processor on our Linux one, which can actually do the inferencing engine. Or for that matter, on the other extreme, we have technologies like Spectrum Fusion, which actually, where CPUs and GPUs can coexist in one single footprint, right? So, but if you're retraining the model is when you require a whole lot of GPUs, right? So, and that's one challenge. Either you do it on-prem or in the cloud, as Ramesh had mentioned. So that's one element of the infrastructure. So your makeup, whether you're going to retrain the model or continue with the trained model, what is already available with you. Then comes the security principles and designs around it, right? So considering that a lot of the point which I made earlier, that you need to have an IA to have AI, the security principles around the AI model is of prime importance, because you're more and more exposing yourself, and the exposure or apertures are much, much more when you do such things. So security design is of prime importance. That's the second piece. And of course, what really comes, the third one, is more explainability and the theme of today's thing, which is responsible AI, that in the entire AI pipeline across infrastructure and IA. So you have a data pipeline, you have an AI pipeline. Am I able to really go and explain the outcome of that AI without any biases and so on and so forth, is also a part of that infrastructure, right? So each one of them go hand in glove. You can't look at just hardware in isolation and ignore the other two, right? They have to be together, because that's how the entire AI pipeline really works. So these are the three elements which are very, very critical when designing an infrastructure. Now, obviously, you can go, as Sandeep, if you recollect one of the slides which Sandeep shared, that one of the parameters of the 5 things was AI is multi-model on a hybrid design, right? So that's where we are, organizations are moving towards. So that's also one of the design principles which really come when you get into that.
So we're also talking not only about responsible AI, we're talking about responsible and explainable AI infrastructure.
That's right.
I think that's extremely important. I can take one question from the audience. We have time for one. A big hand. Thank you.
What an absolutely incredible conversation, gentlemen. Please rise, and I'm going to request you to come towards the center of the stage and come together. I'm going to quickly move to the other side of the stage, and let's capture this moment in an amazing group photograph. And ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for this incredible conversation. Ramesh, Arvind, and Vishy, as we all know him. Thank you so much for not just being here, but for making us think. And Leslie, on behalf of all of us, thank you for moderating both our power panels. You infuse the power in these panels. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when we opened the summit this evening, we promised you incredible conversations, and that's what we've been very comfortably delivering. And I must say that all of our speakers have given us not just a lot of food for thought and action, but that must continue. So I've got some news for you. We're now going to move into our breakout sessions, but there is a slight change, so I require your complete attention, because due to the paucity of time, we have sort of teamed up or clubbed a couple of breakout sessions. So here's what we're going to do. In room 205, we will have the breakout session titled Revolutionize Employee Workflows and Productivity with Gen AI. In 202, we'll have the era of Gen AI, security for AI and AI for security. And in 204B, we'll have scaling Gen AI responsibly in your organization. Now, I have my team of ushers who are going to direct all of you to your respective breakouts. And I must inform you that to re-energize you, we have tea and coffee served right outside your breakout room. So, ladies and gentlemen, please rise and make your way to your breakout sessions and have a phenomenal rest of the evening. Thank you.